All right, sweet. There we go. So this will be the first Rebel Crew podcast minus Lance, who recently moved to Arizona, and I haven't heard from him in a little while. So it'll be the crew here. So we got me on board, Keiran Halton, Ryan the Cure, Ryan Patrick, the Rebel Performance coaches. First one of these that we've done. Thanks, guys, for hanging with me and doing it on a Sunday. We won't do that moving forward. But yes, this will be a fun one today. So what we're going to do largely is have a round table discussing this really big concept or topic of core training, air quotes for the people that don't watch the video. Just kind of talk about some misconceptions, how we think about core training, what the core actually does from a function standpoint, et cetera, et cetera. Hopefully just clear some of that up for people that are listening, and then they can walk out of here with a better idea of how to go about maybe approaching training their core. But before we get there, where we are going to start is that the announcement of the new Rebel Performance training team, which I am super jazzed up about. So we've had our Apex athlete training team, which has been an amazing experience. This is like the evolution, the upgraded version of that. So the Apex athlete training team is becoming the Rebel Performance training team. For the Dragon Ball Z fans, this is like when Goku first became a Super Saiyan. That's the step that we're taking here. And so myself, Keiran, and the two Ryans are all going to be coaches in this Rebel Performance training team. And so we got a lot of really big changes that we're going to be making. So big change number one is obviously now we got more coaches on board, and you will get a personal coach that is 100% dedicated to your success. So you get a coach, you have a private DM thread with, it'll be me, Keiran, or one of the Ryans, depending on what program pathway you choose. And that's the next big improvement, is we're bringing way more program pathways to the table to help you become this true like total package that we've talked about at length on this podcast before. So what we can do here is quickly introduce ourselves, the programs that each of us are going to be running. And so it's kind of this, we have one team with 4 coaches, 7 different program pathways. The one team gets you access to all of it. And I'll talk about some of the other really cool bonuses and features that are going to be blended into this as well. But I'll kick off first. So I'm going to be running 2 program pathways. Pathway number 1 is going to be called Total Package. This is a continuation of that Apex athlete training team stacked pathway for people that have been doing that. Goal of this is really simple. As the name entails, just help you become the total package. You're going to get strong, jacked, powerful, well-conditioned, and you're going to move really, really well. You're just going to be an apex predator. Pathway number 2 that I'm going to be running is called Tactical. So similar to total package in concept, but with a major bias towards endurance. In particular, you're going to be doing a lot of Metcons, a lot of medleys, just become a total, complete fire breather. So those are the 2 pathways I'm going to run. Keiran, why don't you hit yours next and just kind of introduce yourself, say what's up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Keiran. I've been a Rebel athlete myself since 2018, maybe the first silverback, the beta silverback.
Somewhere
testing.
in there.
Yeah, so it's been a while, but I've been coaching close to a decade, so somewhere up there. But I'm going to be running 2 programs, mostly geared towards the busy professional, family obligation, work obligation, loves the gym, but might not have as much time. And they are the Burn, which is, again, for the busy professional who's probably looking to tone up, shed some of the Corona 15 or the Freshman 15 that's been hanging around for a while. And then we have Build, where somebody who is a little more concerned with building muscle, taking their shirt off at the beach, getting nice and strong, and all that stuff. They would go on the Build track. So Burn and Build, both for the busy professional, whether you're looking to tone up or to get big and jacked for the summer.
I love it. And all of those, the big one in that is that it's perfect for someone who's on a time budget.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, everybody's got to work, family time, we'll get it in, get you out, get you the results that you're looking for.
Huge. And so if you join either of those pathways, they'll be paired with you as your coach. And so unlike a lot of these online coaching programs where you just get a program, then you're off and running, doing your own thing, like you will actually get paired with the coach who's running that pathway. You'll have a private DM thread with that coach so that you can actually get input, feedback, ask questions, get eyes on coaching, You get way more touch points. It's like having an individualized coach is exactly what it's going to be like essentially. All right, let's go. I'm trying to think what order I want to go here in our square of videos. Let's go Ryan LeCure. We'll just kind of circle it.
All right. I'm Ryan LeCure. I was baptized at 10 years old in the squat rack. So I've been training for quite a while now. I started training professionally, as in taking people's money, when I was 18. So it's been about 11 years now that I've been doing that. So I've done a lot of sessions in person. Got a big passion for building muscle and strength as kind of a secondary focus. So that's really what Swole is all about. It's exactly what it sounds. You're going to be able to really stretch out those t-shirts and those shorts, hopefully, in all the right ways. Going to build some strength along the way. We're basically going to attack hypertrophy from every possible angle that we can. And that's the goal, man. It's going to be a lot of pumping, a lot of getting strong, and hopefully there'll be some nice selfies that go up on the internet for the team to see. So I'm excited.
Swole. Yeah, just go get jacked. Crack sidewalks, don't fit through doorways.
You'll learn how to walk through doors sideways. That's the goal.
That's in week 13 of the program. We have an entire day devoted to how to walk through a door sideways.
Yeah, that's all there.
And maybe a lap posing seminar.
That's coming whether you want it or not. So, and that is part of the program too. Like we are going to see some lat spreads. So
I love it. New t-shirts, new shorts, new pants, new wardrobe. Yeah. Beautiful, man. All right, Ryan Patrick, bring us home.
All right, I've been a rebel athlete myself since 2018, like Keiran, and I got two paths that we're going to take people on. So the first one is the strong path. So it's going to be somewhat of the total package with a very, very strong strength bias. So I'm thinking more plates, more dates for those of you guys. So it's a little bit of a modification on powerlifting. We're going to keep just enough of the other elements of training in there to make sure you guys move well, make sure you stay healthy, can do this for a long time. So it's about just continuation of PRs. And if you ever want to specialize or transition from that into more specific meet prep, meet preparation, you'll be ready to go. And then the other one is going to be Field Demon. So this is Pathway Uncle Rico for the recovering strength athletes who were athletes in a former life. It's getting you back out onto the field, running, jumping. We're going to be working on acceleration mechanics. We're going to be working on max velocity. It's going to really transition you out of the weight room and kind of restore some of that athleticism. However, we are not going to let anybody lose the precious gains that they've made. So you will be maintaining size and strength along the way, but it's definitely a different spin on training.
Beautiful. I love it, man. And then you've been on the podcast before, just so people listening, if they're like, I don't know who this dude is, maybe let's give a quick background here. So you've run your own facility now for quite some time. You have a pretty successful background as a strength athlete, I would say. So just so we can bring kind of like that legitimacy and credentials to the table, let's hit that. And then we can go back the other direction and hit all of that.
Yeah. So I run Peak Fitness and Sports Training we're right outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. So we cater primarily to adults who love to train and our athletes ranging mostly high school and up. So high school, college, and our professional guys, which right now are just all the NFL guys from the Bengals. So that's kind of the day-to-day job that I take on. So we've got a lot of experience kind of working with the guys who need to be strong, but also need to just have a ton of horsepower. And then for myself as an athlete, I was the champion of the 2019 Tactical Strength Challenge. I had a 670 deadlift, did 30 or 31 pull-ups continuous, and then did a 5-minute snatch test with the 32 kilo bell for 121 reps. So it was definitely a hybrid approach. I've done some powerlifting meets, currently hold the state record in my weight class in the USAPL. So I've been around the block, done a little bit of everything, and I just love training hard. So that's where I'm at.
Mic drop. I love it. Okay, circling back, Ryan LeCure, why don't you hit us with the quick background? After baptism in a squat rack, Where did your life take you?
Well, I mean, I'll start now and kind of work backwards. I currently hold the the backyard record at my gym for the barbell bicep curl. It's about 105 pounds. And I mean, it's, maybe not quite as impressive as the 670 deadlift, but yeah, I'm working my way up. But no, yeah, I started training at 10 years old, started competing bodybuilding at 17, and I've been competing every 2 to 4 years in that since then. Just chasing those striated glutes every time. Competed a little bit in powerlifting. I think on the platform, I think my best lifts were like a 545 squat, a 352 bench, and a 640 deadlift or something like that. So actually looking to improve on that in the next few weeks if I can make it to this meet 2 weeks from now. But yeah, man, like the primary focus has just been trying to get as big as humanly possible, and that's taking me down a lot of different roads educationally, which has been really, really cool. So that's the goal, just trying to figure out this muscle building puzzle and just keep stacking on more useless mass, take up as much room as I can.
I love it. Yeah. And then you want to be the person that no one wants to sit next to on an airplane.
Yeah. It's, I just go on flights just like days, I'll just go somewhere and then come back just so I can get that ego boost. Just sit right in the middle every time. I don't even have an agenda. I just want to sit next to people really close. Yeah.
And then you also, so you competed as a natural bodybuilder and got your pro card there back in, I don't remember what year it was.
Yeah, 2014, and then I didn't pay the dues to hold it, so I'm now an amateur again, because that's how natural bodybuilding works. You're only good enough to be a pro if you have $100 a year to pay for it, and then they kick you out. But I think you're actually supposed to compete like every 2 years. Like you have to compete as a pro or something like that. Like the funny thing is I like my whole life revolves around bodybuilding, and I just don't really care about bodybuilding. Like it's competitively, like I just don't really give a shit about anything. Like I really just enjoy just pushing the needle forward and not pushing the needle in. Because like you mentioned, I am a natural athlete, but I just want to keep driving things forward as much as I can, and whatever happens competitively in that amount of time is cool. But it's really just the science project at this point that's really interesting to me. So that's why I'm super psyched about this group, because I'm just gonna have a huge group of people to take through some of these protocols and just see what kind of useless mass we can build. Really, that's it.
Yeah, it'll be cool. Like, the more this gets cooking, we'll be able to start getting some really interesting data.
Yeah,
which I'm looking forward to. Yeah, beautiful. All right, Keiran, you can hit next.
Yeah. Well, I don't deadlift as much as those guys. I don't even have a backyard gym, so I don't hold any records out there either. But I work in with my private clients. A lot of the people who would sign up for a burner build, a lot of the busy professionals. I work with them privately during the morning, midday, and then I actually work at a high school where I boost my ego and I try to outbench all those kids. Doesn't always work either. So, but I work at a private school in Greenwich, Connecticut after school, where I get to do the strength conditioning with those guys after school. So it's fun. I get my adult time. We get people results there, and then we go to the high school, keep everybody healthy, keep them on the field, keep them feeling fast and strong. Yeah, and
I mean, you were casually a 2-sport athlete in college, so like I'll brag on you for that a little bit.
Yeah, I could jump pretty good, so I parlayed.
Still can. Don't make that a past tense.
Well, yeah. So that's when everybody, all the really strong people, try to out deadlift me. Then I'll just walk downstairs to the court and I'll just dunk a couple times and drop the ball and walk out. But yeah, so I got to play college basketball, and then once season ended, I would join the college volleyball team and try to make a run with those guys. So, but it was got pretty banged up, had a couple knee surgeries, couldn't really train the way I wanted to. So that's how I actually made my way to Rebel. Learned a bunch of really excellent technique. Got to train with a bunch of really strong, smart guys, and learned a lot from guys like Ryan. And so I'm just really excited to be able to help everybody else out who joins the program with that, right? Like everybody's really driven, they want to get results, but there's usually something holding them back from an injury standpoint or, time management. So definitely going to be taking a lot of the things we learned within Rebel and spreading the gospel, so to speak, with everybody who comes on board.
Oh yes, just build a whole bunch of life-proof humans.
That's it, man. Just do
go
what you want when you want.
Go kick a life in the testicles and take no prisoners while you do so. Cool. So I'll round this. Former Division I athlete, fell in love with the weight room in high school. I am the perfect example of shiny object syndrome person, because I leave college where my entire life at that point had revolved around strength and conditioning and competing in my sport and having a locker room and a team and all this other jazz. And then the Thanos finger snap moment, you like leave college and it's like, oh, that's all just gone now. Bye. And so, fortunately I had the weight room. The hard part for me though was figuring out where I was going to put my effort and energy, because I loved elements of a lot of things that I tried. Like I dabbled in CrossFit, which was probably my very first love, to be honest. Loved the community, the camaraderie, the competition. Like if you have a competitive bone in your body, you will enjoy going into a CrossFit gym, right? But don't really love all the Olympic lifts, the exercise selection, the gymnastics. Just not for me. Love the strength from powerlifting. Did not love losing my athleticism and blowing my back out. Love the size from bodybuilding. But again, like if I can't do athletic things, if I can't have some work capacity and a big engine, if I can't sprint, jump, and cut, like I was always very unhappy. So it all circled back to me of, well, I don't see this thing in the world, so I'm just going to make it. And that was when Silverback started, which Ryan and Keiran, you guys ran in, right? And that was the total origination of this total package concept, right? It's like, I want to be strong in the big three. I want to be jacked. I want to be powerful in the sense that I can sprint, I can jump, I can cut. I want to move really well so that I'm not in pain. And then I want to be able to do metcons and medleys and have a really big engine, right? And so that's essentially like what I've started creating for myself. And then Rebel as a whole is largely built around trying to just bring that and span it out to more people, which is why I'm so excited about this training team, because the way I try to describe this concept to people is, think of yourself as a video game character, and you have kind of like this attribute spoke wheel that you see in video games sometimes, right? Like I think that you're 6 attribute bars on that spoke wheel for you: strength, hypertrophy, power, endurance, movement, and then the last one being fusion, which is like metcons, medleys, your ability to put all these other pieces into one unit. And so what's fun about the training team is that once you're in, like we're going to be able to grow this spoke wheel for you, this attribute wheel, in all directions at all times, right? It's like, okay, well, maybe I want to focus more on hypertrophy right now. Awesome. Cool. You're going to go see Ryan. We're going to hammer that for as long as that's the primary goal, right? But we're going to do it in the sense that we're not going to let everything else just totally fall off. Similar thing with, hey, I want to focus more on powerlifting, getting really strong in the big three right now. Awesome. Go see Ryan Patrick, plug into the strong program. You're going to get strong as shit in the big three, but you know what? You're still going to be athletic and you're not going to be in pain. If you really want to just do this hybrid, total well-rounded approach, you'll be with me, right? Like if you're super busy, you don't have as much time, plug in with Keiran. You're still going to get incredible results, right? You're still going to be working on these attribute bars. And that's the goal here, right? It's to push the attribute bars as far as we can in all directions for you based off of your goals, your interests, and your priorities right now. And so we can pass you around as needed, which is going to be really, really cool. And so a few other things in the training team worth mentioning, and then we're going to talk core training. One, so you join one team, you get access to all 4 of us, all of these program pathways, and you get a private personal coach totally dedicated to your success. We're going to have 4 Zoom calls a week. One of us running each of those. There'll be 30-minute calls. There'll be one on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So you can log into Zoom, talk to any of us, get input, get feedback right away. The goal of this is for you to not have to really think too much. You just get to focus on execution, and then we're going to be there to help you with the implementation and all of it, right? Because most people listening to this probably overthink things all the time. They are their own worst enemy. They just get in their way. So our job is to remove you from that process and make the execution and implementation as easy as possible for you. Another one I'm really excited for, as part of the training team, you'll have access to 3 training camps a year. These will be in-person events, It'll be free for you to attend. All you got to do is pay for your travel and pay for your food. Otherwise, we're going to go to different gyms around the country. We'll space these out so that it makes sense on a calendar. We're still getting those dates locked in, but we'll have 3 in-person training camps a year. They'll be over the course of a long weekend. There's a really cool opportunity for you to come actually get hands-on in-person coaching from us, to interact with all the other cool people that we have on the team, right? Because in the team, you're also going to have the forum. You get to compete pretty much every day. We're going to have competitions. So you'll have this awesome online environment. The training camps are going to be a great opportunity to come in person and bring all of that to life for you. And then the last thing we're going to do is twice a year, we're going to have our in-house competition, our in-house throwdown, what we're going to call the Total Package Athlete Challenge. So these are events that we will put on for all of our members. These can be your game days that we put on the calendar, the thing that you can train for over the course of a year. And we're going to test out of everybody in our family, out of everybody in our tribe, like who has the biggest attribute wheel, right? And we're going to test you across all these metrics. It'll be a remote event as well as an in-person event. So everybody can participate. There'll be scaled divisions for people that want the scaled bit, right? And if it's not something that you're ready for at that time, then you can just keep doing your normal training, right? But I think it's important to give people a competitive outlet with the way that we're talking about training. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else worth mentioning there. 1 team, 4 coaches, 7 program pathways, in-person training camps, private team forums, everything delivered in Train Heroic, personal DM thread with a personal coach, 4 weekly Zoom calls. Lots of good shit I'm super pumped for. It's going to be the best online remote training experience going. Again, I am just like really, really excited to see where this is going to go. Last bit on this, and then we're going to talk core training, is if you sign up this week, the week of the 26th, we're running a special discount so you can get 20% off the normal price as long as you sign up this week. And that price will stay with your account as long as that account stays active. So if you're listening to this, if you're like, this sounds dope, I totally want in. The link to join is going to be in the bio, in the show notes. Sorry, not the bio. The link to join will be in the show notes. So all you got to do is go in, click that. It'll take you to the page where you can register and sign up. And again, that'll be at a 20% lifetime discount as long as your account stays active. That's good through Friday at midnight. And then the price is going to go to the normal price. Okay. So check the show notes, click the link there to go get registered, sign up, and get training. Otherwise, let's go and talk about core stuff. The core is one of those things that is a massive buzzword. I don't really love the word core, but everyone knows what I mean when I say it. So if you want to argue with me over semantics, then I think you should probably go find a way to get busier. So let's start here. We'll roundtable this and just see wherever it takes us. When I think about the core, like for me, the core purpose of the core is to control the position of a rib cage and a pelvis. I think if I was going to try to whittle it down to just one thing, that's what I would say. It's like you have a core to control the position of a rib cage and a pelvis so that your arms and legs and biomechanics can actually take place. Let's just roundtable that and see if we're all generally kind of in a similar place, and we can add layers to that however we want to. So anybody just jump right in, whoever wants to go.
I thought Keiran was going to go. You're just
Yeah, I thought
you leaned in. I was like, this is going to be good.
You went in the lean in. You went in hard.
Damn, you got me.
We're just a bunch of polite guys. Nobody wants to go first.
Yeah. Oh, I'll fucking go first.
Go. Yeah, do it.
You
Go.
guys. I think the only thing that you really need to know is one word. It's called a squeam. And you just wrap that thing around you as tight as possible. It's going to make your core look super tight and small, and you're going to have all the curves in the right places and flat in all the right places as well. So there we go.
Hold on, what is this thing?
You guys don't know about the squeam?
No.
I think it's basically like a corset. Like you just put this fucking thing on, and it just like collapses your internal organs, but you look great for a little while. No, that's actually like a big thing in like bikini competition and stuff. You know, not that I know anything about that, but yeah, it's absolutely terrible. So I should probably stop talking now. But that's it. That's just the first thing that I think of when I hear the word core. I just immediately think of the scream, and I just think of all these poor people that have collapsed internal organs.
You don't need
But,
those. Those organs are overrated, bro.
I mean, do you want to look good or what? Like, what are you
Do
trying
you
to do
remember
here?
the belt, that thing that they used to sell in the infomercials where it's like,
Yes.
oh, you want a six pack? And it's like you put on this belt and it just like does stem contractions. And it's like, oh, this is how you get a six pack.
Dude, I mean, if I had like the $40 at the time, I would have bought one of those things for sure. I mean, I've bought at least like 2 infomercial ab things in my life. I'm not super proud to admit that, but yeah, I have. But yeah, I would say like that's a really good start. Like I mean, I'll speak to some of the questions I get a lot with like core training. From a bodybuilding perspective is I think people, they look at it like similarly as they would to other muscle groups, and that it needs to be like trained and they need to do like a bunch of loaded exercises to develop it the way that they want, which is kind of weird because it just doesn't seem to actually produce the same type of results as like your bicep would, right? When you're and I'm not exactly sure why that is, maybe because we can't really get those muscles into like really lengthened positions to load them eccentrically or something, but it doesn't really seem like your abs hypertrophy that much, nor would you want them to. I would think like it's kind of a weird thing when you actually think about it. It's like how big do you want your abs to be? It's like kind of weird. So I find that I don't really program a lot of stuff directly for ab training because a lot of it is just going to create just shitty movement in a lot of ways if we do it in the traditional sense where we're loading things and doing a lot of sit-ups and crunches and whatever other stuff people like to do. And I tend to approach it from that perspective, James, where it's more like how do we use these muscles to control the thorax and the pelvis so we can present with good movement everywhere else and actually work the muscles that we're intending to work. So that's kind of the approach that I've taken lately. I don't know what you guys' thoughts on that stuff is.
Yeah, I think I kind of would approach it the same way where like, for a lot of like busy professionals coming in and stuff like that, like, just to end with a little abs, like direct ab work is like, so they leave feeling like they really like crush their abs and whatever is fine. But I think most of the clients want to just like throw the weight at me when they're done, because even like squats or pressing or deadlifting, whatever, usually the first question is, did you feel like a little bit of side abs? Did you feel like your core, whatever you want to call it? And it's always the first question, even before we go to like the targeted muscle groups, usually because people are coming in with like low back or something pinching or something like that. And when we can get the core, or, the stack or whatever you want to call it, in a good position, nine times out of 10, that's going to clear up a lot of the issues. Plus they're going to feel the targeted muscle a little bit more. It's almost like the analogy I'll use a lot is it's almost like the core is your foundation. If the foundation's off a little bit for a house, right, it might not be a big deal, but by the time you get out to like the shingles or the chimney, right, like that's where the issue comes in. So, the pinch in the shoulder or the elbow or whatever, if you can just come back to the foundation, straighten everything out a little bit, everything kind of falls into place a little bit better, right? Less injuries, more pump to whatever you're trying to hit. But then, end the day with some dead bugs or some other variations. So oh man, that feels really, really sore now or whatever. So that's the last thing that they remember walking out of the gym. So they're ready to come back and get some more next time.
All right, I'll jump in. I'm on the same page with you guys. James, I definitely look at it in terms of, creating that, I think Zach Couples calls it ventral cavity control. So just keeping the diaphragm and the pelvic floor stacked. I think for most people, most of the time, it just unlocks the ball and sockets. So the hips start moving a little bit better, shoulders move better. And I think that just begets better training volume to allocate in other areas. At least that's the way that I try to use it. Now, I've kind of gone a little bit the other way in the sense that, the lower rib cage is definitely one spot that people are going to compensate the first. So, in some of those athletes that I have, or even guys who just train a lot and got a ton of muscle mass, it's really hard to create enough tension through that area to get other areas to move the way that I want. So I've upped the core work in some of those populations, and I've seen some pretty good results. And I'm not opposed to doing some traditional core work. I mean, we do quite a bit of reverse crunches just because I think it's one way that people can pull their hips back under them. I mean, we don't do a ton of crunches because I don't want to jam their sternum down. But that direct core work does seem to help to some degree. And kind of to Ryan's point, it's like, I don't know how much it doesn't respond quite the same as other muscles. So it's not like I've seen anybody really get themselves into a ton of bad positions from doing it. And I think the people that generally like to do that stuff anyway usually train. So they're just more malleable when you get them into the training room doing the right stuff anyway. So yeah, just some thoughts on that. And then, I've kind of been tossing back and forth with some of the plank work because, there's some research out there, especially with the guys on the, doing their change of direction stuff, that the ones who are faster have a little bit more movement through the trunk, less traditional stability, and what you would expect to see, when people talk about changing direction and having the stable core. Well, the guys who are the fastest are actually moving it a little bit more. So, do I want to splint them when they're in the weight room with Palloff presses and, tons of planks and side planks? It's kind of it's a spectrum. I'm sure there's some is necessary so that they've got ownership of the position, but they've also got to be able to demonstrate that they can utilize it. And I kind of hate this word too, but in a functional way. So, that's kind of where I'm at with that. I don't know what are you guys taking from that?
Yeah, I think one of the points there that's really important is that, like pretty much everything else, we're talking about appropriate timing, like appropriate stiffness at the appropriate time. Especially when you start getting into change of direction, or like if we're going to hit loaded movement, right? And I think an important point here when we start talking about like the muscles involved, like let's just go ahead and say it, a rectus is a show muscle.
Yeah.
It pretty much brings almost nothing to the table. Like if you think about the capacity of a rectus to actually control what a rib cage and a pelvis are doing, it's pretty minimal, right? I have a really small little tiny attachment site up here around my xiphoid process, then I have a really small attachment site down by my pubic symphysis. And that's all I got to bring to the table, right? Meanwhile, you go look at an external oblique, an internal oblique, a transverse abdominis, like these things grab like lots of ribs and they grab the whole like top side of the innominate. It's like, okay, just from an attachment site surface area standpoint, which one of these is going to be better leveraged to do the job that we're talking about? Right? And it's just like, okay, well, these side abs are the show. But I don't think that you have to just like what you're saying, Ryan. You don't need to do tons of side planks and all this stuff. It's more about teaching you like the timing and the appropriate stiffness. Like that's where exercises such as a wall press leg lowering can be important. Can I Velcro my low back to the floor with a leg that's going from flexion into extension? As it's going into extension, I'm going to get a pull from a lengthening quad. Can my side abs oppose a lengthening quad? If I put you in a half kneeling position, similar thing. Like, can my side abs oppose a lengthened quad on that downside? Or if we're going to do a kettlebell pull, like a 3-month pullover, can my side abs oppose and manage a lengthening lat that's trying to drive me and push me this way into like more extension? So that's a lot of how I think of it is, can it show up at the right time to help manage stiffness and tone coming from these other really big movers? If you think about it as certain things open the mouth, so the ribs are the top of the mouth, pelvis is the bottom of the mouth, I would love a closed mouth, right? But you have big movers like quads and lats that would really love to open that mouth. And so for me, again, I don't want to be dead horse, but it comes back to that timing and appropriate stiffness at the right time to manage the fact that I have all these muscles showing up and pulling on different attachment sites and insertion points, et cetera. Can they all fire at the right time and the right stiffness to make sure that I don't just turn into a train wreck?
Mm-hmm. So in terms of timing, you mean the 5-minute plank series that my soccer guys do isn't the best option for them?
Yeah, that sounds awful. That sounds like a terrible idea.
It's
so
great
dumb.
as a coach because then you can just
check
out for 5 minutes.
That's the
know.
time filler, right? It's just like, oh man, practice isn't
whatever.
over yet. Push
Yeah,
ups
yeah.
and
You could
planks,
actually
guys.
set up
Line
your
up.
computer. You could set up your computer right on one of the athletes, and you could check some emails if they're doing the plank properly. Yeah, I feel like one of the big determinants for me with whatever exercise I'm going to use is I think most exercises can work pretty well, but when we're talking about core specifically type of exercises, just being able to go through a full respiration cycle while you're holding that position or whatever thing you're doing, I think that's pretty important because otherwise I think that's where we do really get into just increasing rigidity. And then it's like, what are we doing? I don't really know that that's super helpful for anybody in a lot of ways. Like, so if we can hold positions and actually be able to breathe and not see significant changes in the rib cage and pelvis while we're going through the breathing cycles, then I think it can probably work pretty well. And just certain exercises lend themselves better towards that. And I think that really anything, and this is kind of what Keiran was saying anyways, like pretty much we can cook that into just about anything. And then if they want to do like a little bit of direct stuff at the end or whatever, they just want to get that feel, then we can, but they're already getting that so much just by getting in good positions and then going through a full range of motion and being able to breathe while they do that. And I would think that at least what I've found is it doesn't seem to promote as much rigidity as other things may, and they can still actually move pretty well. Because even like for me and the clients that I work with that are interested in hypertrophy, like I don't actually want them to turn into a cement block. Like I still want them to be able to do stuff, like be able to rotate and bend and like that. Because I think that if your only strategy is just to lock everything down every time you do anything, then eventually that's going to, I don't think like we're going to feel the muscles that we want to use. I don't think we're going to be using the muscles that we were trying to use anyway. And I think eventually we're going to get ourselves into some problems with some overuse type injuries or just pain syndromes from just doing the same damn thing all the time.
Ryan, can you just give an example for a frame of reference in terms of just an exercise and
Sure.
maybe like the setup and execution, just so that everyone listening has an idea of when we're talking about cooking it in? Because I agree, like I don't really provide much direct ab training for a lot of my people. And that's where like I usually get emails when they first start on. They're like, "Hey, where's all my ab work?" I'm like, "It's in all of your, it's in every movement that you're doing."
Yeah.
But just maybe give an example so we have a little bit of context on that for somebody.
Yeah, I think a good one would be like a cable fly, like against the bench, and just where you're putting your feet. So if you're like, in my mind, there's no reason to put your feet on the ground when you're doing a cable fly, because you're just by putting, unless you just have like crazy amounts of hip extension, which you don't. If you're listening to this, you don't. And so like just being able to reach your feet to the ground without just completely losing your pelvis and your rib cage, like you might as well just put your feet on the bench, get a little bit of a tuck, get some proximal hamstring, glutes, abs, and then go through that chest fly. And like a lot of times people actually feel their pecs more because they're just in a better position to contract from the get-go. So I think that things like that, when you're doing a competition style bench press and you're competing in powerlifting, the goal of powerlifting is just to cheat as much as possible. Like right, Ryan? Like, I mean, it's like taking advantage of like trying to move it as little as possible. Like that makes a lot of sense to put your feet on the ground and extend. And I don't think that's bad. Like, I think you should do that if that's your sport. But when it comes to other stuff where you're actually trying to get hypertrophy from a movement, or you're just trying to maintain good movement quality, like why not just put yourself in a position that's a little bit more advantageous for both of those things, instead of just doing the same damn thing? Because like when left to our own devices, our stress response is always going to be just like this extension pattern. So if we know that we're battling that all the time, like I want to try to throw as much stress into the system without having to go to that strategy. And I think that like leads to some really long-term success and just recovery and ability to just pile on more work, like Ryan was saying, to just be able to allocate that volume towards something else, and have more ability to accumulate good work.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because I'm older or just, I've been doing this a long time and got banged up, but, the process of developing versus demonstrating strength is going to require much different technique. When somebody's going up to the platform or they're trying to show out. I don't care if they give up their core. I don't care if they find that extension. And in fact, in some regard, it's the strongest that they can be doing that. So by all means, do that. But I don't want that to become a regular part of training, because it does take away some of the foundation and the capacities that they need to really layer in adequate volume for a long time. Not even, and that even goes to just like selection of how, like the RPE set over set, you know, some of my younger, just not experienced lifters, they don't have a good gauge on that, and they train so hard in the first couple sets that they can't even make it through, you know, a typical session. It seems like so much volume, but really it's just a lack of understanding what an appropriate training load looks like and managing the technique within the context, so that when the time comes to demonstrate, you have that available. You can find that extra gear. And Ryan, one of the things I wanted to jump on is that, you know, in our place, you know, the clients we work with, we've even stepped back on some of the core training that we've done, because I know even for myself, if I do a traditional dead bug or some other well-meaning exercise like that, I get a diastasis because I've got a broader rib cage. It's already pulling me apart. I'm just not able to actually get in that position. So we've gone a couple steps back with a few people and just done some band resisted hook lying breathing, where they're on the ground and they're able to find that position and actually work on getting a dynamic rib cage, making sure that they can close their infrasternal angle or open it if they're more narrow. But you know, just something that simple, I think, was an oversight. It's like, oh, it's a dead bug, it's good, that's, you know, how you build abs. But I know for me, like, it wasn't working at all. I mean, it was just basically ripping my ab wall apart. And some people are like, oh yeah, I really feel that. I'm like, yeah, it's ripping apart your abs, man. So, you know, it was just, I mean, it's just being okay with stepping back and just teaching people how to breathe and really recruit abdominals without just relying on the exercise or a ton of leverage to create that response.
It's funny like how far such simple positions and doing the basics like just savagely well, like how big of a rock that could be for some people. Like I know for me, and then a lot of the high school athletes I work with, you just, to your point, right? Like you just like no extension, that's all you know. And it's like jumping high, running fast, all that stuff. But then like to actually feel the ground underneath you. Like when I started, you know, going down and getting a little more into like the breathing mechanics and all that other stuff that we're all talking about, I remember for the first time, like feeling my whole back on the floor and just being like, oh, that's what that feels like. And just like how everything loosened up, and I still got like a killer, like ab burn or whatever. And to your point, it was like just a basic banded pullover, like hook lying or like 90-90 position. Like you couldn't make it simpler for somebody. And throwing that in either, you know, my private clients or the athletes at the school, it's such a simple movement, but it just carries so much weight. Everybody moves cleaner after it. Everybody feels better. They feel their abs. It's just like such like an offshoot for like a vanity muscle, or, you know, I want to do a little abs. And it's just, so you guys are talking about more training volume, a bigger training stimulus, feeling better, moving better. So, you know, they're coming at it from the vanity perspective. We're coming at it from all the other stuff, but it's everybody's happy at the end. And, you know, again, the simple stuff just goes so far with that.
So, Keiran, have you found, and Ryan, like that people are just as satisfied with that, or has it been difficult to make that transition when you start, like Ryan, you started pulling back on some of the core exercises, or maybe some of the perceived difficulty of some of them, and Keiran, like you just throwing in different variations where they don't really necessarily look like traditional core exercises? Like, do you find that your clients are just as satisfied with that stuff from like a feeling perspective, and just being like happy thinking that they got the work that they wanted?
Yeah, I think is like, you know, it's, as long as you're like coaching it up really well and stuff like that and hitting on like just the big rocks, you know, a lot of times they'll feel it. But if somebody wants to, like, you know, like people ask all the time, oh, well, what happened? I just had somebody ask, you know, oh, well, what happened to just good old sit-ups? Right. So like sometimes you have to like bring it back and relate something like that. So, you know, we'll like throw in some traditional like ab exercises, but we'll probably provide a lot more references, squeezing the med ball behind the heel and the hips, or, like maybe adding a little bit of a reach or like a little bit of a banded resisted thing. So like sometimes you got to give them a little sizzle with their steak, so to speak, and like, bring it back to what they're familiar with. But as long as we're like coaching up those, reach here, try to tuck a little bit, or, coaching the breath work, like I think it makes sense for them. And again, as long as they feel it at the end of the day.
Yep.
So, I mean, my clients inherently, they trust us. A lot of them have been with us for a long time, but I still get what I just call the eyes. They just kind of look at you like, this is it. This is the thing that I'm doing. So I think like Keiran is, we have to bake it in a little bit. I can't totally go 180 degrees and make them do these things that are, I mean, more or less warm up type activities when they want to train. So it's kind of phasing it in with some other things. And like Keiran said, I think if we coach it well, if we can integrate it quickly with other activities where maybe they'll use that skill of breathing in a particular way or finding the position that they need to, then they start to gain just a better understanding. And I know even with just like the breathing, for instance, some people they almost feel nothing because they don't have adequate, I guess, strength to really recruit the abdominals doing something that's so low level. So it's just it is completely novel for them to struggle with something like that isn't loaded, that isn't, I think, difficult right out of the gate. But one of the general rules I always tell my guys is give them what they want in the context of what they need. And once you just bake it in there, then most people can buy in because they're still getting the things they want. Kind of like Keiran says, you got to marry these two things and go forward. So it can never be all my way or the highway, and we're also the professionals, so we can't let them write the program either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think in that realm, it's tough because you do get certain people like just want to do direct core ab work, and I just do like there's definitely still some benefit there. Like I'm not going to say it's a waste of time by any means, and so like for me, the ones that I kind of have a handful bread and butter that I go to, I like rollout variations. Probably not on a barbell because I would bet that if you're listening to this, you're probably not ready for it. I would start on a physio ball, like a really well executed physio ball rollout. You should feel tons of side abs. Any and all leg lowering variations are huge, especially if you want to give it like a kettlebell reach to like the up leg when it lowers. Like that's going to absolutely blow up side abs. Reverse crunch variations, sometimes, just so I know that they're going to get an ab pump, if you want to call it that. I really still like half kneeling chops and lifts. You can even essentially put them in a step up position and still do chops and lifts there. Those are kind of like my bread and butter when people are like, I want to do more core work. Like, okay, cool. That's tentatively where I live, and had a lot of success with, right? Because I think sometimes just getting them to be able to actually feel a side ab contract and work can be really hard. So I'm trying to chase the sensation for them of, oh, I feel this thing working, and I want to be able to feel this thing when I go do other exercises. That's what a lot of it is for me. A lot of times in the warm-ups or even on the back end of a workout, it's less air quotes training the core as much as it is making them sensory aware of the fact that it's there, and I want them to be able to feel it. I don't know if that rings true for anybody else in here.
Yeah, absolutely. Like throwing it like one or two in the warm up and then like always coming back to it. Like, I love like a 2 kettlebell front rack squat. Like that'll crush abs 9 times out of 10. But then, you bring it back to, hey, remember the wall press, dead bugs or, whatever we did in the warm up. Like, did you get that same sensation? And then like, it's pretty cool. Cause like some clients who are like thinking that way a little bit more, like you'll actually see the light click. And then like you get to talk less down the line because like you've already made that connection for them and they're just like off and running at that point.
That's the biggest thing. Once they actually make the connection and they can turn it on or off. When they feel, okay, tuck belt buckle to belly button, exhale your ribs down. When they feel side abs working to help control that position, then things get way easier. I don't really need to spend a ton of time there because now I'm just cool. Let's go train more. Let's go accumulate more volume someplace else, because that's the whole goal here. And I think Ryan, when you said this earlier, was totally spot on. Is I want to try to stack the deck in your favor where I can. So for example, a kind of a bench cable chest fly. Like, why not just put your feet on the bench? Let's stack the deck in your favor. Let's make it a little bit easier for you to get in a position that we're chasing. We give you the sensory reference of having Velcro your low back to the bench, so you have to get a little bit posterior tilt. You can exhale ribs down into a bench. Okay, cool. Do you feel these side abs working? Awesome. Now hold that, and now we're going to do this chest fly. And now we're in a position, because the name of the game in training and pretty much anything is the accumulation of more volume over time. Like, at its core, that's what we're trying to do, almost regardless of the physical quality that we're chasing. But I think having a distinction between I want to do things that enforce this position versus I'm going to choose things that are going to challenge this position, I think that distinction in choosing exercises is really important. Are you the type of person that needs more enforcement? Awesome. Let's get you on the ground. Let's lay you on a bench. Let's give you something to actually have a sensory input on your backside. Let's maybe put you in a hook lying so you can feel some proximal hamstring working, right? Or if you're the person that maybe needs more challenging, if you're someone who's just really big and stiff, then yeah, maybe in the warm up and on the back end of training, I'm going to spend more time helping you challenge position and getting side abs to help oppose quads, lats, whatever we're going to essentially take that in terms of muscle groups. Anybody have any other thoughts there? We got 3 questions that we could also go to from the crowd. Well, I chose 3 out of a handful.
Yeah, let's see what they got.
Let's see what they got. Let's transition here. Beautiful. Okay, so all right, the first one is outrageously broad. So we're going to keep this one really simple. It was like, how do you handle nutrition for your clients? So one, I will probably refer you to some of the other nutrition-based podcasts we've done with either Dean Guido, Jeb Stewart-Johnson, or the one we just did with Sinan was really good as well. Like, coming up with your macros is not hard. And I think people think that's really complicated. It's not. Just use a Harris-Benedict equation. Get an idea of what your total calorie intake should be. Throw yourself at a gram per pound protein. Fat, 0.3 up to 0.7 grams per pound, I believe. And then let's fill in as many carbs as we can outside of that. And it's like, okay, cool. They're your macro. Like that's your macro consumption. Those are your calories. So on the nutrition and lifestyle front, that's where the coaching becomes so important. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm excited for the training team to bring that back in, is because, right, we'll be able to spend more time having those conversations with people, because like the training, the programs, we got like well over a year's worth of programming written for all these different pathways with different phases, different emphasis, so we can put you where you need to be at the right time. That frees up our time to be able to focus on implementation, execution, helping you on the things that are going on outside the gym, like your nutrition, your lifestyle, etc. Like, let's get all that stuff dialed in for you. So that may not have answered that person's question, but it's like the macro bit is really, really easy. It's just it's purely an execution game. I don't know if you guys have different opinions or thoughts on that.
I guess with a lot of the professionals, it's tricky sometimes. Like, this week, Tuesday night, I have I got to take clients out to dinner, or, Thursday night, I got to do the same thing. Saturday, I have a wedding, the whole life thing. So I think it's just, one, I will refer to my fiance Gianna and the Stronger You crew for the macro stuff. Just because that, they do a really good job with that. But then what I can help out with on that is we'll talk about planning ahead. I think that is such a big thing. Like, can you bring your food so you're controlling what you're eating versus like going out to the bodega or deli or wherever you're at to get lunch. So planning ahead, and definitely just like trying to put you in environments that it's easy to make those decisions. So you could just kind of autopilot, like maybe don't have a 6-pack in the fridge and keep all the beer out of the house. And, so planning an environment, I think for me and my clients are the biggest things.
Yeah, I think our family at Stronger You does a really, really, really good job in this realm. And so generally speaking, if you really want nutrition coaching, then yeah, like I would probably send you to Stronger You. Maybe look at, I think the Renaissance Periodization diet app is actually quite good in terms of, what is it, like 12, $15 a month, whatever it is. It calculates all of it for you. It tells you when to eat. The timing maybe is a little bit off sometimes. Like I've had clients use it and they're like, hey, it has me eating dinner at 9:00. I want to go to bed at 9:30. It's like, yeah, we can, not allowed. So we have some flexibility. We could move the timing around, but it's a really cheap solution and it kind of does all the work for you and it makes things a little bit easier. And then, yeah, like the Stronger You people, I think are the best we know in the nutrition coaching realm. And then if you really want to get in the weeds and you want to get into blood work land and hormones and gut tests, then like you're either going to go see House or our friends over at Nourish, Balance, Thrive are also fantastic in that realm. Anything else? Do we feel pretty good on that one? Should we go to the next one? The next one's pretty interesting, actually. All right, I'm getting head nods. I'm going to go with a yes on that. So the next one is how biomechanics can impact physiology. That should be an entire podcast in and of itself.
Yeah, can we just defer to Evan Pecan on that one? Pecan.
Pycon. I think it's Pycon.
It's Pycon.
Yeah. So it's like, go listen to the podcast I did with Evan a handful of weeks back. Was really good. But how biomechanics can impact physiology, the first place I go, because this is where most of my training is in oxygen consumption. Like your ability to get into different positions, to actually be able to move gas flow, to use the right muscle at the right time, to say, well, I actually have a diaphragm that's leveraged and I'm not going to have to just accessory muscle myself to death to try to get air in. All those things come into play. Like if a muscle's better leveraged, maybe it's better positioned and now it's not having to work overtime. So it'll consume less oxygen. By consuming less oxygen, it doesn't need as much blood flow. So I can send more blood flow someplace else. And it's like biomechanics can have an absolutely enormous impact on that side of the physiology realm in terms of, because like blood flow is the game. I got to be able to get blood flow to muscle so I can get oxygen in there so I can carry carbon dioxide away. And biomechanics can have a huge role in terms of how you're delivering blood flow, how much oxygen a muscle is demanding. And they can also impact things like the respiratory steel. Like if you're in a shitty position, you're having to recruit more accessory muscles to inhale and exhale. You will have to divert more blood flow to respiratory muscles, so less blood flow can go to active skeletal muscle. You'll see a decrease in performance. So like the biomechanics realm and the physiology realm are very tightly married. They are by no means separate. That's a very symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fucking great summary. The thing that it can get interesting too, I think, and I'm just, as you're talking about, I'm thinking just like if you're deconditioned in those positions, I'm sure that there will not be as positive of an effect from the start, because you're going to require more blood flow. You're going to be just moving through more energy at the local level when you're just deconditioned. So I think that's where it kind of starting. This is actually a good podcast to start with, a good topic with the core stuff, because I think it kind of starts there. So you need to build some conditioning with those, being able to hold those positions. Because if you just try to do that for the first time in like a medley or something like that, or some type of Metcon, I don't think you're going to see that performance benefit. It's something you have to get over time. But I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love how you brought that full circle for us. That was wonderful.
I'll give you just one little piece, because James, I remember the first time you programmed something like this, and I still use it quite a bit. But Ryan, to kind of tag along your point, there's, if you find somebody who's they're in a position that's inefficient, you can almost see that disproportionate effort and fatigue just climb when they're doing an activity. So I know for a lot of the clients that we work with, and they don't have that integrity through the core. They tend to be chest breathers. So when we do any kind of front loaded carry, goblet squat, 2-rack stuff within a Metcon, they just crash because they don't have anywhere to get air. And it really exposes that.
For sure. Yeah. I love throwing that at people. Like, I'll give you 2 kettlebell front rack carry in the middle of something. And it's like, cool. Like, if you can't get ribs down, pelvis under, if you can't drive air posteriorly, you're about to be in a world of hurt. And you're just you're gonna gas out. You're gonna die really quickly.
Like that.
Yeah. That's when they start getting like way out here. I had some guy post that the other day because in the Train Heroic in the forum, like when they do challenges, they have to video themselves and post them in. Like we ran it with Silverback. And yeah, like I gave someone a 2 kettlebell front rack, and like I'm watching this dude, like the kettlebells ended up like on top of his shoulders eventually. I'm like, bro, quit fucking cheating.
That's a back rack. What are you doing here?
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, but I think I'm gonna star that one.
Yeah, that's a good topic.
Because that would be a fun one just to do like a whole podcast on.
I would love to listen to you talk about that, and I'll just add basically nothing because that's.
Yeah, because we could. Yeah, maybe what we'll do is I'll see if I can dig up a bunch of papers, send them out, we can read them, and then just have a chat about them. Because that's
as long as there's pictures. Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, because that can get into realm of you can start looking at the ATP cost per contraction, oxygen cost per ATP, things like that. So that's where it can get really pretty cool.
Yeah, to shout you out on that. Sorry, if any of the coaches are listening, anytime you open up the oxygen course, I know like we kind of get into that and it kind of ties together nicely at the end, but you like to go down that rabbit hole, and it's a pretty interesting one when you start looking at some of the research. So that was a great course to talk about some of that stuff.
Oh yeah, I'll throw a shameless plug in there. The oxygen course is on the website if you are interested in that realm. If you like oxygen, respiratory physiology, cardiovascular physiology, metabolism, energetics. Pretty cool course.
That's the one.
Granted, I'm biased because I made it. So take that for whatever it's worth.
I second it.
Last one here is going to be percentages for sprinting. So I'm blanking on the author. I have
0% of the time.
0%.
0% of the time. You're just wasting energy. What are you doing? Get it.
Done. Answer concluded.
You know, Ryan, I used to be afraid to walk across campus because it was too much cardio. Back when I was
just have a step count. If it hits 8,000, I just sit down. And like someone's going to need to get me to wherever I'm trying. I'm done. I hit it.
I just imagine you have one of the little like Walmart carts that you just scooter around in all day.
You do what you got to do, man.
I'm imagining in Austin, you guys have plenty of those scooters.
I was gonna reference that, but I thought no one would know what I'm talking about. But yeah, for sure. Yeah, if I'm on a walk and I hit my 8,000, I just get a scooter.
I just sit down immediately, and then I text somebody, be like, "This is an emergency situation. Someone needs to bring me a battery powered scooter."
It's like you want to Uber 0.2 miles away?
Yes.
Yeah.
But you're gonna have to lift me into the car because I can't take any more steps.
Dude, I mean, I'm living this life. Okay, we're fully in.
This is my favorite podcast. This is the first anti-step count conversation I've ever had.
Dude, I have to talk to people about that all the time. Actually, and like you move too much. The amount of food you need to eat just because how much you move is like actually an issue.
Yeah.
You're so catabolic.
It's catabolic, dude. Walking is catabolic.
Ryan, you'll appreciate this. I was at the gym the other day with Lexner, and he was doing his workout. I was doing my workout, and so like the way that the gym is laid out, Excel, it's really big, and so he was like using the cable machines on one side of the gym, and then having to walk all the way back to the dumbbell rack over here.
Oh, no.
That's about a 50-yard walk.
That's a net loss.
Yeah, so like I remember I'm sitting there and like watching him go back and forth. I'm like, bro, you gotta calm down with all this cardio over here. You're gonna lose all your gains.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, so but percentages for sprinting. I will link to a paper in the show notes. There's a really good review paper. I'm just blanking on the authors, but really good review paper showing percentages, total volume, etc. for different types of running protocols, acceleration, tempos, blah, 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 blah. There's like one chart in this paper that is pure gold. I will find that. I'll put it in the show notes because it's just, it just tells you exactly, boom, here it is. Unless Keiran or Ryan, if you guys have anything off the top of your head that you want to add or hit home on there.
I think I know the paper that you're talking about. I'll see if I can pull it up real quick. But yeah, probably better just to link it.
Yeah, because
I
it's a
have it
really nice
somewhere.
table. It's a really nice table. I mean, I think the only thing that I would say in percentages for sprinting, if you haven't read Charlie Francis, then that's required reading. Like, you need to appreciate this high-low split concept. Like, you're wasting, if you want to get faster, if you do anything between probably 70 to 90% effort, you're wasting your time. You're not getting faster and you're not recovering. So don't do it. You either need to be above 90% or you're doing tempo work below 70%. Like that, if you just do that right off the bat, that's going to help the vast majority of you out there. So don't waste your time in the middle. But for the specific recommendations, I will link to that paper. I just got to go pull it up. It's in my EndNote, so I'll find it as soon as we wrap up here.
Yeah, I'll say this. It doesn't take, you don't have as many high output efforts as most people expect. And I know, especially just talking about like the field demon, it's, as you transition into speed and power work, the terminal rep on any set has a much different feel than when you're training for strength and hypertrophy, because the velocity loss it doesn't matter in powerlifting at all. I mean, ideally you want to get that as low as you can, but to really work on the contraction velocity, you have to end those sets with, what feels like you're still fresh, even though there might be some kind of decrement. And if you've never had the opportunity to use velocity-based training, it's hard to really appreciate. But when you see those numbers pop up, you start to develop just a little bit of a sense for what that actually looks like.
Yeah, I would agree in that realm. Having like the last few months of my training has been solely around return to sprinting because it's something that I miss being able to really do. And yeah, like you'll walk away feeling like you're leaving a lot on the table, but that's where you need to be because it's such a different feel. Like if you love to train and you love getting a pump, which anybody listening to this, I'm imagining that's you. It can feel really weird walking away from something that's more speed VBT based because you're like, well, shit, I feel really fresh. Like my muscle doesn't feel pumped out. I don't feel totally trashed from hitting really heavy doubles, triples, etc. Like it's just, you almost feel like you didn't do work, but that's not the case. You did. You just got to stay patient. That's where like the patience bit on the speed side, I think, is more important than any place else.
I feel like the first time they feel like the neural fatigue, if you want to call it, like it just like you just took like the SATs like back to back, where you're just like kind of zonked, versus like the like muscle fatigue of like, oh man, that was a good shoulder like pump or whatever. Like I feel like until you experience that, you're like, oh, I actually, something happened. It's not what I'm used to from the physical side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100% agreed. Beautiful. All right, bros. That wraps it. The first Rebel Crew team podcast. We'll do one of these a month, and we'll usually have some core topic that we'll focus on, and then we'll have a Q&A on the back end. So just keep an eye out on the newsletter and on social. We'll post up kind of a Ask Me Anything a few days before we go live on these, so we can have a couple of questions. But yeah, guys, thanks for doing this on a Sunday, getting it kick-started. And yeah, go sign up for the training team this week. 20% lifetime discount. 1 team, 7 program pathways, 4 coaches, in-person training camps, in-house challenges and throwdowns, weekly Zoom calls. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, let's get it.
Let's do it, fellas. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's wrap this. Have an amazing week, everybody. I'm going to hang up now. All right.